and Beth Ann will introduce Maria. Looking at lawyers for children and young people as a specialism. Alison is Principal Solicitor and Chief Executive at Childlaw. She's been a solicitor since 1996. Started life working in civil litigation, but became a reporter to the Children's Hearing, and recognised the need for a specialist outreach legal representation service for children and young people in Scotland. So she's one of the co-founders of Clan Childlaw, and that happened in 2008. She continues to be employed as its Chief Executive and Principal Solicitor, and is a member of the Scottish Civil Justice Council Family Law Committee. But Alison also does important work as a court reporter, curator ad litem in relation to contact and residence disputes in the Sheriff Court, and in relation to adoption and permanence proceedings. Until recently, she was also a safeguarder in the Children's Hearing System, a member of the Law Society of Scotland's Access to Justice Committee, and a member of the City of Edinburgh Council's Child Protection Committee. In 2021, Alison became a Law Society of Scotland certified specialist in trauma-informed practice. So with that incredible background, Alison, let me hand over to you for a few words on this.
Thank you very much. And you're absolutely right. What an impossible job to follow. So please bear with me, stick with me if you can, but there will be no dancing in the aisle, I can promise. What I'm going to do though is talk for about 10 minutes, and I'm going to ask you to come with me on this journey. I'm going to talk about lawyers for children as a specialism. And what I mean by that is I'm going to conclude that lawyers need training not only in the law, but they also need training to know about children. We're going to explore how lawyers without any training in working with children can effectively represent a child. Is this possible? If you're learning to be a primary or a secondary school teacher, you don't just learn about teaching. If you're learning to be a doctor specialising in children, you don't just learn about medicine. If you're going to be a child and family social worker, you don't just learn about social work without having training in child development, child protection, etc. So why is it, and is it right, that lawyers can advise children on the law only with training about the law and expertise in the law? So, and I'm going to then conclude that representing children, really, you probably do need some other training. And some of that does happen, but universally that this should be looked at. So please come with me on this journey to see where we've got to with this. I'm going to first of all start by talking about why children need lawyers anyway, and this is a really important starting point. I'm going to then explain about Clan Childlaw and how that's evolved and how this fits into the journey, and then argue about why, with myself, I'm going to argue about why a specialism is needed and what steps are being taken. So 10 minutes. To start with, I'm going to start with why do children need lawyers? And I know that this is a difficult subject, and I know that there is a move towards an acceptance that advocacy workers are sufficient for children. And I want to explore this for a bit. And I want to start that by saying what a good job advocacy workers do for children. And this is not what this is about. Everyone agrees that there is a need for a child's voice to be heard, and advocacy workers help with this across Scotland every day. Their work is invaluable. At Clan, we speak with advocacy workers every day and help them with the law to allow them to help children express their view within a context. And I know the Minister was talking about that in the expansion of advocacy this morning, which I completely support. However, sometimes helping the child express their view alone is not enough. Sometimes a child may need their rights protected and enforced like an adult. And where this happens, like an adult, you or a child would like someone who's trained in the legal framework and the law to help navigate often complex intersecting laws and to make sure that the best outcome is reached. To use the analogy from Anne Skelton earlier, about choice of road to go down. If you had a legal problem, would you like somebody to help express your view, or would you like somebody who has a qualification in the legal processes that you are involved with? So if we are serious about children's rights and the UNCRC and making those rights real, we need to have mechanisms for children and young people to enforce those rights. As with adults, there are times when having a lawyer who has knowledge of the legal system and the context within which they are working in order to express views and advise on the possible outcomes are required. So the start of this journey, at least in my view, is that some children will always need lawyers, as some adults will always need lawyers to enforce their rights, even although we don't want to be in that space, but that's the space we sometimes get into. So that's the background. The second thing is to talk about Clan Childlaw and its journey. It's Scotland's law centre for children and young people. It is a charity which specialises in giving legal help to children and young people. We're qualified lawyers. We go to children's hearings, we go to court, and we're set up as was referred to 2008. There's 25 in the team. We've got offices in Edinburgh and Glasgow, just to give you the context. We represent children in relation to a whole range of issues, including children's rights, children's hearings, care experience, leaving care, housing, homelessness, unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, adoption, permanence, contact residence, cross-border issues. We then take those issues and we try to then work to create the biggest impact we can. So if we can find ways of working together with the Scottish Government or others who are trying to make the law better, then we will do that. And we also work to look for strategic cases to make those changes. We also, as I've said, we have spent lots of time working with professionals to try to help them about the law so that they can do the best they can with the children that they're working with. And the reason Clan was set up was just this thought process of saying, well, how would a child actually even recognise that they had a legal issue? How would they go about resolving it? How would they go and get a lawyer? Would they walk into a legal firm in the city centre and say, I need a lawyer? Didn't seem likely. And at that point, it became really clear that we needed to set up something that was child-friendly, child-centred, child-accessible in the child's world. So what we try to do then is create that service at Clan by making sure that we meet children at a place that suits them. We make sure that we've got time to spend with young people that we're trying to help, and that because we're a charity, we're not solely dependent on legal aid, so that we've got time to do that and listen and work with young people at their own pace and communicate in a way that they choose. So that's the background of Clan, which is important in this. And the next part in this journey is to think about why we would want a specialism. Why do we think we need a specialism? What I would argue is that there are essential skills that every lawyer needs to represent a child in whatever area of law that is. So I'm just going to very quickly try and share my screen. See if this works. Could somebody maybe just confirm if that's working?
Yes, thanks, Alison.
Fantastic, thank you very much. So if we take the doctor analogy, this is what you would do if you were a doctor training to be a paediatrician. You would become a doctor, and then there'd be a whole raft of things that you'd have to do. Now, obviously, this is not a complete analogy. There's lots of things that about a child's body that is completely different to an adult. So, you know, you've got to take this within its limits of an argument. And if we go on, yes. If you go on, then that shows you if the comparison to the legal profession. So the doctor's training goes on for some time, and the legal profession, there is no specialist requirement. So if we take it from the point of view that we agree that some lawyers are needed, and that actually we need to make sure that they have some training to do it, we move on to the next question, which is what are we going to do about it and what skills do they actually need? So what's happening across the UK at the moment is that there's a group of us having a look at this. And it wasn't me, but there was a group put together who were looking at across the world, what are the essential skills of lawyers working with children? And I have to say it's patchy. There's some things going on across the world, but nobody's actually put this all together into one place. And that's what the UK Childlaw network that we're involved in, and we've got funding to support, has been starting to do, and try and look at what are the essential skills for lawyers. Now, it's still really work in progress, but I'm just going to show you 3 slides. The first one is really around child development. So these are all the questions that we're thinking of, the things that lawyers might need to know about. Lots of work around trauma, child development, brain development, sexual health, competence, instructing and use of experts, contact with the law, and what it means to be a child lawyer. Component 2, all about communicating with children, removing jargon, looking at cultural competency, children giving evidence, child participation. So lots and lots, again, and to say this is really a very early stage. And the third area is the children's rights and child participation. And that's a bit more about the law. But what we're trying to do is think about what the essential skills are, whether you're a lawyer in England, Wales, Northern Ireland, Canada, that you would need in order to be a lawyer for children. So, stop sharing. That's perfect. So those are the essential skills that have been identified up to a point. And what's now happening in Scotland is the next question. Well, the Promise has acknowledged this issue, and in I think it's the Change 1 programme, the Promise says, as with other professionals such as teaching or social work, to be a lawyer for children requires specialist training and skills. And so what we're now trying to do is, so in the UK, they're trying to build those materials into some kind of course. And then what's going to happen is each of the jurisdictions are going to take those materials and try to make them into something that is useful, taking into account all the things that are going on within their own jurisdiction. And that's the stage that we're at. It's quite difficult because we don't have the materials yet as a part of this to know how to work with them. But any thoughts welcome about what might be useful, or methods of making sure this training becomes available to people who would like it. And of course, the really important thing about this is so what? Why is it important that a lawyer can communicate with a child, or has skills about child development or trauma? Why is that important? Well, it's just so important because if we don't get well, any interaction with children is really important, and how we know that any professional who's working with children, that is so important that is a good relationship. But also we know that makes a difference. If you've got good communication, you probably get a better outcome for the young person. And so part of this is a plea to you. I think obviously quite a lot of you who are not lawyers have all those other skills that non-lawyers have. And I suspect that we'll be asking you for help in order to develop this, in the same way as sometimes you ask us for help with the law. And I think that might work very, very well. So through this and working all together, I'm sure we can make a difference to making sure that children's rights are upheld and that we work together to improve lives. Thank you very much.
Alison, thank you. That's fascinating. I think you've given us the headings, and every one of which could probably be a talk in itself. We don't really have time for questions, but one very quick question's just come up. You've talked about lawyers for children. One of the issues that comes up time and again in conversations is lawyers for parents, lawyers for other participants having a dominant effect in hearings. should they also be trained and qualified in the way you've described? Although they might be representing an adult, should they be child lawyers?
That's a really good question. And of course, I'm aware that this issue comes up a lot. If they are working in an environment where children are involved in the process, then they have to be part of that, and they have to have knowledge of the system within which they're working. I think there's no question about that. Don't think that's controversial.
Thanks, Alison. That was fantastic. I'm going to hand over now to Beth Ann